Talk me through how this number has moved throughout the week, and where do you think it winds up?
Nothing but Buccaneers money. Nothing but Buccaneers money. You can't find a bookmaker who's taken anything on the Patriots yet this week. They're all talking about it. Ticket counts are through the roof. Ticket counts essentially meaning how many tickets, what percentage of the tickets, the betting slips are on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's well over 90% right now at Caesars, who we work with here in Las Vegas. Game opened somewhere around Tampa -6, 6.5. It was immediately bet up to the key number of 7. Bookmakers expect it to go as high as 7.5, which is where the professionals might get involved backing the Patriots. That's a huge move, 7 to 7.5, okay? People need to understand that. 3, 7, these are very key numbers because games end on those differentials, 28-21, 35-28. So that extra half point isn't a half point. It's the difference between leading by 7 and then getting a defensive stop and another scoring drive late in the game to cover that spread. So if you like Tampa Bay in this game, get the 7 because it's going to go to 7.5 and you don't want to play that number.
Here's what scares me to death. We talked about this earlier in the show, Joe. We've been waiting for you to come on. 94, the number you just gave me is in the 90s. Hembo just gave me 94% of the money is on Tampa giving the points. And if there's one thing I've come to learn, it's that 94% of the people are right 6% of the time. But I mean, I love Tampa, and I think Brady is going to throw 5 or 6 touchdowns. I think he wants to bludgeon them. I think the fact that they're coming off a loss makes a difference. And I think the Patriots are not nearly as good as I thought they were. Like, I feel like this is a very one-sided game, but I'm terrified to go against all the public money. So how do I handle that?
Okay, so remember this. All right, the public doesn't always lose. There are situations where the public will line up. They will bet Alabama in a national championship game against Ohio State, and they will cover that number and they will win that money. So it's not a death sentence. And it's not as if the professionals have been lining up to play the Patriots at 7, right? They're waiting for 7.5, and I don't even know if it's going to be that overwhelming because, and this is to your point, I don't think the Patriots are nearly as good as we give them credit for. I think 2 decades of dominance has left a permanent sear in our minds, as it should, because it deserves such. But we need to work our way through that. Since Brady left, they're 8-11 straight up. They're 8-11 against the spread. This year, they're 1-2. They've lost both home games, and the 3 quarterbacks they faced are Tua Tagovailoa, Zach Wilson, and Jameis Winston. Excuse me if I might be shocking some people here, but Tom Brady's a bit of a step up in class. This all comes down to whether or not the Tampa defense can step up for once this season because they have been dreadful, giving up over 330 passing yards per game, which plays right into what Mac Jones should be able to take advantage of. Backdoors open here in this matchup, but remember something. Everybody was lining up on Cincinnati last night and Jacksonville covered. And last year on a Sunday night when Baltimore went to New England, everybody was lining up on the Ravens in the rain, and the Patriots won that game outright. So the shockers do happen.
It's such good insight here. Joe Fortenbaugh with me. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. Let's go to a couple of others talking about the lines moving. What other moves this week have caught your attention?
Your beloved Jets. Tennessee was an 8-point favorite at New York against the Jets. It's down as low as 6.5 at some places. So again, through the key number of 7, which is very significant. Injuries to the Tampa Bay wide receiving unit and elsewhere are one of the primary reasons. Jets have been feisty. I know they haven't looked great, but you go against that defense in Denver and everyone thinks they can't play any offense. Same thing when you went against Belichick's Patriots. That's not the case. Tennessee gives up plenty of points. We've seen it all season. Jets are live here. If you're in a survivor pool, be very careful with Tennessee this weekend. They're going to be popular alongside Buffalo. The Rams were a 6-point favorite. That got bet down to 4 as the Arizona money is coming in. I got to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of that one. Matthew Stafford is a huge upgrade over Jared Goff. The Rams are only starting to scratch the surface on what they can do offensively. They've got a marquee win over the Buccaneers under their belt, and I will never take Cliff Kingsbury in a coaching matchup against a guy like Sean McVay. If I'm wrong, so be it. I'll chase the money in a game later in the day. Green Bay was laying 7 against Cement Boots Roethlisberger. That's down to 6.5. That's one of the shocking ones. Remember, Green Bay off a huge win against San Francisco. The travel coming back across the country. Some are betting Pittsburgh here. I don't see it. That's a stay away for me.
Okay, very good. Joe Fortenbaugh. Let's run through a few others quickly here because I really like these. Give me your favorite NFL plays this week.
Two of them, Seattle +3 at San Francisco. The Seahawks have won 12 of the last 14 in this series, and they have the recipe for what beats the Niners, and that's a vital passing attack. Russell Wilson completing 73% of his passes. Seattle #1 in the NFL in yards per attempt at over 10. That depleted San Francisco secondary has been awful this season. Kyle Shanahan, 3-13-2 against the spread as a home favorite as the head coach of the 49ers. Don't be surprised if Seattle wins it outright. I'll also play the under 51.5 in the Browns-Vikings game. Jekyll and Hyde act with the Vikings. Defense is awful on the road, decent and competent at home because of the crowd noise. We saw it last week against Seattle. These two teams play at a very slow tempo. Cleveland wants to run the ball under 51.5 Vikings-Browns.
I love it. By the way, I went with Joe Fortenbaugh's picks in my picks at the end of the show last Friday, and we went 4-1. So that was outstanding, and that's the kind of thing that we're looking at here. Quickly, college. We're always looking for the spot Alabama could lose. They're a 14.5-point favorite at home against Ole Miss. Is there a play here?
First of all, previous point, is the check in the mail for the 4-1 last week?
Well, I mean, I wish I'd actually bet it. I actually just make the picks on the air, so hopefully some other people did well with it.
We'll get you there, Greeny.
Yeah,
we'll get you there.
I like it.
For college football, I take the 14.5 with Ole Miss. Alabama opened as a 20-point favorite. It got bet down to 14.5. As long as you're on the north side of 14, catching 14.5 or greater, I'd play it. Ole Miss has had 2 weeks to get ready for this game. Matt Corral at quarterback can score a ton of points. He's the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy right now. Remember something. Last year, taking over this program in a pandemic with limited spring practices, Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin gave Alabama all they could handle in a 63-48 loss. That's a 15-point deficit. This Ole Miss team is better. I can't say the same thing about Bama. Their defense might be better, but their offense isn't. I take the 14.5 with the Rebels.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.